First story, wife cheating. My 50 plus story. Long. My ex-wife cheated with 20-something-years-old guy when she was in her 40s. She met him on flight returning home after visiting her parents. They were seated next to each other, chatted and exchanged the numbers. Apparently their parents belonged to same social circle, so that was connection. He was fresh graduate from our hometown headed for internship into the city where we lived. I met him at airport while picking up my wife. She said he was fine young man and it would be nice from us to help him not feeling alone in big city. So we did. We were inviting him for a lunch or dinner over the weekends, taking him to beach with us and kids. Occasionally wife went out shopping with him or to watch movie I did not like. Few times she took him to party at some of her friends' place. I stayed home with kids and was genuinely grateful that I did not have to waste my time with people I did not like. He appeared to be withdrawn, not really talking too much. I did not think anything of it. Little that I knew they were fucking all that time every opportunity they had. 6 months have passed, his internship was over and he went back where he has come from. I thought I would never hear from him again. What I did not know was they stayed in touch. Young guy has caught feelings and was living illusion that somehow his time will come to be with my wife again. Few years have passed. We divorced for reasons other than cheating. If you ever lived with narcissist then you'd know why. I was not even aware of her cheating at the time. After divorce, thanks to friends, I found out the extent of it. She was master manipulator and was covering her steps well while I was naive beyond belief. I believed every word she said. The rare mistake she made, if it was mistake, was bragging to her girlfriends about benefits of having 20 years younger toy boy. One of them told me the whole story, and that is how I got to know about it. Once we divorced, guy had intensified his pursuit of my wife, probably thinking that his chances on. She must have rejected him, and as revenge he sent mail with her nudes. No text, just nudes. Some of them were taken in our bedroom, some in our living room, and some in what I assume was his place. Some were nudes where she was obviously posing for him, and some were hardcore from his POV. I did not reply to that mail, neither I mentioned it to my wife, with whom I remained in contact because of kids. That was not the only time she cheated. Friends made sure to make me aware of her other adventures. Many of them knew about her hobby for years but kept quiet. By that time I was over her and did not really care about her escapades. Fact that she was sleeping with others behind my back has become irrelevant. What was hurting was realization that I believed I had a partner, best friend for life, and was totally unaware of reality. That feeling was humiliating. It also made me angry, more about myself than her. Could not believe how naive I was and how many obvious red flags and weak lies I missed or ignored. For years I was working day and night doing whatever needed to be done to provide for my stay-at-home wife and kids. The best I could, and reward was betrayal by one I trusted the most. Anyway, that was a while ago. It took many years to clean up financial mess, divorces. Things like that is impossible to forget or forgive, at least for me. Never really healed emotionally but learned how to live with it. The experience has changed me, and to be honest, I like my new self more than person I was. I am a lot stronger now. Kids have grown up and turned fine. They stayed close to me but not to their mother. I have remained single, could not trust to any women ever again. Friends still make sure that I am briefed about my ex-wife's current adventures. They will never know how much I don't care. It must be satisfying for them to show off their success and happiness with their own family life. They helped me to understand who my friends really are. Wife continued with her ways, having one primary partner and sleeping around. Probably her partners knew and are okay with it. The young guy went to another city with work. I was told they do get together whenever he's in town. Then there was a talk about her being part of threesomes, then that she's bi. Turned out she's not only narcissist but nympho too. The latest I heard, not from her but her friend, that she was diagnosed with BPD. Second story. My fiancé was living a double life and I'm the one being blamed. I, 42M, was in an 8 years relationship and got dumped, then found out the next day she, 48F, had actually had a boyfriend of 14 years all along. As soon as I found out and messaged the boyfriend, she spun a narrative to him that I knew all along, and that I'm crazy and trying to break them up. 2 weeks ago, I was dumped because I told her I didn't like how she pressured me into swinging partners. Then found out the day after that my ex was cheating the whole time. She has had a boyfriend of 14 years, who all her family and friends know, who she travels with multiple times this year. She would always tell me she was on solo trips, and text me every day on them, so I truly believed her. I was her side dick for the past year. She has lied to me the whole time, and every time I suspected something, asked if she was cheating, or questioned why she always hid me from people in her life, like she would always make sure the coast was clear whenever I came in or out of her room, so her roommates didn't see me, and she wouldn't ever introduce me to anyone. She'd tell me I was paranoid and mentally ill. I'm a loner and have low self-esteem, so I believed her. The sex with her was violent and rough always, which I realize now was because she saved the nice, normal, loving sex for her actual boyfriend. I was an object. Often she would suffocate me by leaning her entire body weight onto my head with her leg open during sex while she was on top on me, and my face would be squashed into the pillow and my breathing obstructed to the point I felt certain I was going to die. She'd bite my nuts extremely hard. She almost ripped one off a few months ago. She'd choke my parts in a way that never felt good but just like strangling. And after I finished, she'd jackhammer me in an extremely painful way. It was understood that I didn't like these things and found them painful. She didn't care. Telling her I wasn't into them was proof I wasn't kinky enough like her. She told me every other guy she'd been with loved them. Since she never made me enjoy the encounter, I asked in our last conversation why giving man romantic love wasn't one of her kinks. If I objected to things, like swinging and jackhammer me, on account of finding it uncomfortable and painful, she would say okay at first, but then make constant jokes and comments about it, threaten to dump me to get me to do it, or say if I really loved her I would do it. The most recent time she did this, I went home, looked up some stuff about pressure to do sex acts, and texted her saying I had felt uncomfortable using a penis cage the night before, and hated how she would dangle the possibility of a breakup to get me to do sexual acts. I used the word coercion for the first time, and she then called me and immediately dumped me. It was incredibly cold. There was also an incident about 4 months ago where she'd said she was busy 2 long weekends in a row, was vague and barely replying, and we had our first trip away together booked the following weekend. I came to her house and saw her coming outside with the guy, who I can't remember well, but I now think was her boyfriend. She pretended not to know me in front of him, and then came back without him and was so pissed at me, we broke up. She went on the trip without me, then got back together. I groveled for months after this. She told me how I broke her trust and had to earn it back. This included doing anal on my birthday for whatever reason, even with him knowing I hated and find it painful. She had been secretive all throughout the relationship. So after staying up all night crying, I spent the next day digging around IG. She's had me blocked since our first date and is on private. She would always say she doesn't even use IG, so why do I care if I'm blocked? Funnily enough, we had an argument just 2 weeks before where I asked again for her to unblock me, and she said I was making her feel emotionally drained, so I apologized, asked how I could make her feel better, and she asked if I could put more effort into liking swinging and choking. LOL. I found out by looking through the similar accounts suggested on her page from my sister's account. I found a guy's account whose recent panty pictures she'd been liking. At the same time she'd been insisting to me she doesn't use IG ever. I DM at him, asking if he had messaged her at all, expecting to hear that he might have flirted with her or something. He told me she was his GF of 14 years. I want to ask for proof. Then I sent him 10 selfies of us over the last year. Asked if I could see proof too, and he got mad at me and blocked me, after accusing me of knowing about him all along. I messaged him from another account, telling him I had had no idea and could send more proof. He responded asking me to send more proof, but then said I was playing dumb and must have known, and blocked me again before I could. She also blocked me immediately, without saying a word, despite being with me and telling me how much he loved me literally the morning prior. I showed up to her house the morning after I found out to confront her, and she laughed at me and told me she and her boyfriend had met up as soon as I met her. She asked him to block me, and he has let her believe I knew all along. She's staying with him, and they've both basically made me the bad guy. Even though I was constantly wondering if she was cheating, I must have asked her 100 times. She has let her boyfriend believe I knew, and she blames me. She told me how they were both talking about and laughing at me. That she was saying how I clearly still want her, how insecure and crazy I am, and how she just wants me to leave them alone. I was crying and asking how she could do that, and she just said she was glad it was out and that she felt nothing about it and didn't want to know me anymore. She also said the reason he did it and didn't bother to face me and apologize like she did to him was because I didn't love her genuinely, like he does. I was refusing to leave without her treating me with some remorse. She wouldn't even look at me. I was so angry. She took a video of me stood outside her door, refusing to leave. A few days before I felt like she was the closest person to me on earth. She couldn't stop telling me how much she loved me. She was starting therapy and I felt like she was opening up more. She discarded me so coldly, and it turns out I never meant anything. I made a Google Drive folder of screenshots of texts over the past few years, showing her claiming to be single when we met, complaining whenever I ended it with her. I did this 3 times. She also ended things 3 times. The longest it lasted was 2 months. Then she reached out and we got back together, telling me how much she loved me, sending me texts and pictures of the views whenever he was traveling with her boyfriend and pretending to be alone. Or she'd claim she was with an unnamed guy friend who she met in gym, like her boyfriend, and who is the same nationality as her boyfriend. I included 2 screenshots of the conversations where she'd pressure me to do rough sex. Most were in real life though. Also, she would delete her messages in real time when we spoke about this topic. But you can gather what we're talking about by my replies saying I don't want to do anal butt plugs and don't like being pressured. I also included videos and texts of her talking about marrying me and having kids with me, as I know she'll likely justify it to her as I was the one making it serious, not her, but she was talking about our marriage within the first month. She moved so quickly, which I see now was a red flag. That worked perfectly on me after never having had a guy be serious about me before. I sent the folder to her boyfriend in FB because he blocked me on IG, her mother, and a friend of her, who I met accidentally once, and who acted really confused when I introduced myself as her fiancé. I feel honestly dead inside. I can't believe this happened and I'm being blamed. Right now I'm on a therapy waitlist. They said it's 6 months long, but hopefully there's some movement. I've called a few hotlines, and will definitely look into my insurance coverage counseling. I have really bad boundaries and am super gullible and idiotic once someone says the right things, even if they're acting like they hate me, which she likely did. She got really cold and told me how weird it was that I didn't trust her, and implied she was going to dump me over it. I felt so terrible. I apologized and felt like shit afterwards for doubting her, and I completely dropped the idea of joining the page. Looking back, I can see how much pain I would have been saved if I had. And sharing her on there, and how intentional it was that she made me feel bad for wanting to. I know I've been long-term cheated on. When I was in love with her, and that X and I are still friends. The girl I did it with was incredibly nice and normal to talk to, and it felt like everyone involved just treated each other like people. It was painful, but not life-ruining. In this situation I feel like I've been treated like I'm not even human. I would have loved to react better, to have had actual conversations with people, and just been treated like a person. But I just couldn't wrap my mind around any of this, and being made the scapegoat when I know I've had literally hundreds of conversations with this woman where I said I felt like something was going on, and she'd tell me I'm just insecure, crazy, imagining things. Knowing I was right, being painted as willingly sleeping with. After all that is just blowing my mind. I've felt like I've been inside a nightmare for weeks. I hope that people with more empathy than her can get her to see that this isn't okay. As you said, it's unlikely, but that was my intention. The friend is who introduced her and her boyfriend, so even if she won't look, I hoped someone would. Especially the parts where they made fun of them together. That's highly unlikely and designed to hurt and humiliate me. Unfortunately, that's the one thing she said that seems true. She was rude and mocking to me from the first message of me just saying, "Hey, do you know so and so?" Which I realize is because she thinks I knew about her, so it's not so hard to believe. But him telling me about it was definitely very intentional. Stop thinking about them all. Think they're block me. I'll delete everything and find something else to occupy my mind. In my mind, I always think it just needs to be explained right, and then she'll understand. A few months ago, after some especially violent sex where I was slightly in shock, and she immediately kicked me out and went to work after, because to her it was just normal sex, I called her and explained how it had felt really dehumanizing. She apologized, and I felt like I'd explained it well, but it happened again. She has an abusive dad, and watches a lot of porn, so that's part of why I rationalized it as her not really knowing it's wrong, but just replicating what she knows. But I guess that's me wanting to understand. Third story. I found out my fiancé cheated with her relative. How do you ever rebuild the trust? My fiancé, 36F, of 3 years, cheated on me, 34 am. She established a friendship at first over time through a relative. The male companion was a friend of said relative. This led to the inevitable, which was somewhat of an affair for a month or two before I found out. We separated technically, and it was a mess as she was seeing both of us during this time. Long story short, we got back together, couples therapy, individual therapy, boundaries set, whole 9 yards. We struggle because she has issues communicating, so even when she's doing something completely harmless such as visiting family or working, she kind of gets a little oblivious and doesn't think about how particular things she does would be perceived. Ignoring texts, staying extended periods past or agreed upon times, etc. I'm not trying to sound like a dictator, but say she tells me home by 7 and doesn't leave work or gathering until 8. So I ask questions, ask for reassurance, and she gets annoyed. This has been a work in progress, but I'm left feeling, how will we ever have a functional relationship if I'm still always worried you're being unfaithful? To skip to the recent events, she recently went on a small trip to a semi-local, 2 to 3 hours away destination with a few family members, including the cousin who introduced her and enabled her to spark the cheating relationship. Anyway, a few instances popped up where she'd go MIA for a couple hours at a time and have weird excuses. Phone charging in another room. Like there isn't outlets all over hotels, bad service or bad Wi-Fi etc. Keep in mind she brought her fam to one of the chains we usually stay at, so I know the service isn't awful. Anyway, due to a few behaviors like skipping our usual pre-bed FaceTimes when she's away, not sticking to her own check-in schedule, something we got from therapy, and doing weird stuff like making it seem like they were at events that on average take 30 minutes for hours at a time. She hardly sent any photos with her family, and frankly most pictures excluded everybody and were just of scenery or random items. Almost no people in any photo. She brought her cats with her. She loves them crazily and we sleep with them on the bed nightly. And it's a pet-friendly suite. She sent a photo of the cats in crates on the floor of her room at bedtime. And when I asked why, seeing as she's alone and doesn't sleep well alone, she'd be chomping at the bit to have the kitties there to snug up to. She said Tuesday Hotel has a strict no pets on the bed policy. When again we've stayed there before and I know that's not true. My immediate thought was she didn't have any room because her affair partner came to meet her. I know the likelihood is slim, and my concern is more so that I convince myself of these things more often than not. And I know it's relative to my inability to trust her due to the trauma sustained. It's like part of me wants to catch her cheating again. What else can be done here? How can I begin to stop this? I'm out of ideas and feel like we'd be a lot further on almost a year since getting back together. Fourth story. Wife had emotional affair. Can't seem to get over it. My wife 41F and I 45M have been married for over 10 years and have kids. When we first got together she was big into music, enough that she wanted to make a career out of it. I encouraged her, but after trying she grew to realize that it was a lot of work and the pay, unless you make it big, was garbage. She then shifted into a different career. We got married and had kids. When our kids were babies and young, she back to school pursue the second degree. I supported her in this even though at times it made me feel like a single dad. I would get the kids up, take them to daycare and school, pick them up, make dinner, play, baths, and put them to bed. I did this all while being the main breadwinner. My wife also worked part-time during this time, but she would come home and then say she had coursework to do and disappear into the bedroom. On the weekends I would have the kids all by myself. Occasionally I would ask her to watch the kids, but that usually just led to fights. A few years ago, she said started going to an open mic once a week with a friend. Eventually the friend stopped going so she would just go by herself. She grew to know the people there and after a while decided she wanted to take lessons and perform again. She then met the guy she had an emotional affair with there. One night we were laying down in bed together, and she had me read a note saying she had feelings for another guy, and that she wanted an open marriage to explore those feelings. I was crushed and heartbroken, but still considered her request. Her happiness means the world to me. Eventually I told her that she would have to choose between him or me. The thought of supporting her, while she ran around with another guy, was just too much for me. She left and had a conversation with him, and eventually came back home, and said they agreed they couldn't see each other any longer. Fast forward to a year and a half later and I am still heartbroken. I still think about it on a daily basis. I still believe that if it wasn't for the kids and the stability I provide she would have left me for him. She has not helped this situation, as there has been multiple times where I have caught her looking him up. She also unblocked him on Facebook, but claims she was just interested in what he was doing. When she says I love you in my head I say yeah right. When she makes comments about me being the love of her life in my head I say, you would have left me if you could. I don't know what to do at this point. I can't seem to get over it. I don't treat her badly or try to show my resentment towards her, but it festers in my heart. I don't think I was the best husband, but surely I didn't deserve this. I tried individual therapy for a while, but it didn't seem to help much. My wife refused to go to marriage counseling. In the end I think I would have preferred if she asked me for a divorce. At least that would have shown she respected me instead of trying to make me a party in her affair.